So, good afternoon and welcome to today's event, which is Navigating Tech Careers. So, my name is Faisal and I'm currently working as an assistant professor as well as chair for the industrial partnership. So, now I would like to invite our associate dean, Kevin, to officially welcome our members as well as for the territorial acknowledgement.
My name is Kevin Wainwright. I am the Associate Dean for the Faculty of Business and Computing, and I'm very excited to be here today to welcome you and to acknowledge that we are on the territorial unceded lands of the Stolo people of the river, who have been stewards of this land for time immemorial, and we are grateful to be here and share this land with them today. And again, welcome everyone. I believe that having the opportunity in this day and age, education is becoming a lifelong learning. And I think it's important that academia, industry, the community becomes more integrated. You're going to find that life has many different complex pathways, many of which we don't think about when we're starting class. And I think opportunities like this today are a phenomenal opportunity to understand and learn from people who are in the seats that you one day would like to sit in. So I will now turn it back over to Fazil. Thank you.
Thank you, Kevin. So today's event is more focusing towards what different opportunities do our students have while they are navigating from academia to tech, or if they have any entrepreneurship. So we have seen the way technology is evolving rapidly. We have seen artificial intelligence, we have seen generative AI, large language models, cloud computing. So technology is evolving rapidly. And honestly, we need to align our students according to the industrial standards or what requirement industry have. So today we have a very wealth of experts that will be sharing their experience, how they were navigating through their own journey. They will be more discussing on what different opportunities you have while navigating from academia to tech. They will be also discussing in terms of ventures. Also, if you have any product or any idea, so how can you convert that into a profitable business or venture? So welcome you all. So I want to introduce panelists. First of all, Prashant Agrawal. He is the founder of Be Specific. He has more than 25 years of experience in business as well as strategy, as well as venture development. And he also he has expertise in scaling your business from 0 to 1 to 10, which we would love to hear how you can do that. So welcome, Prashant.
Thank you.
Second, we have Isabelle. So Isabelle is in the IT industry since 1999. Isabelle has been working in multinational companies as well as small, medium enterprises, also in aligning IT with business goals. So she will be discussing more what different IT opportunities you have while graduating. Thank you, Isabelle. Third, we have Raza Mirza. So Raza Mirza is engineering leader in Amazon. He has also more than 15 experience working in different roles such as CTO, a tech leader, and he has expertise in tech. So he is purely from tech side, and we would love to hear what giants like Amazon, Facebook, or Meta they expect from our students. So definitely we would like to hear from you. Finally, we have Jason. So Jason is basically founder of Beta Collective, which is a co-working space concept, and also YVR Prep, which is a commissionary kitchen concept. So thank you. And he also supports small businesses as well as young students and graduates. And he is also serving as a community leader, serving on boards such as BC Small Businesses, Diversity Roundtable, and Burnaby Board of Trade. So Jason, welcome today for the event. So now I would like to invite Sabrine Gill. She will be the panel moderator for this session. So now we will be having a 40 to 50 minute panel discussion where she will be asking questions and we would have some discussion on that. After that, we will have a Q&A session where students who are online, they can also scan the Slido and put on their own questions. So once we are done with Q&A session, then you will have the opportunity to network this panel. So Sabrine.
Thank you so much for that introduction. My name is Sabrine. I'll be your moderator today. I'd like to thank everyone for being here today. And without further ado, let's get started. I want to start off with the first question. What mindset shifts and skills do students need to transition from academia to the tech industry or entrepreneurship successfully?
Particular order you want us to go, or?
No, whatever you say. Yeah, whatever you think.
I think the biggest mind shift is in academia, it's a perfectionist mindset, because you only get to do your exam once, you only get to do your assignment once, maybe, if your professor is, good, maybe twice, or any quizzes and whatever, right? But in the industry, you have to have a iterative mindset. It's not a one shot. You go in, you build something, maybe it works, 70% of the time. You go, you present it, you talk to your colleagues, you get new ideas, you get to reiterate and kind of improve on it. And that's kind of the fundamental shift from building for perfection to building fast and building quickly is one thing that the biggest thing that I see is you can do as a student when you're switching from academia to industry.
Yeah, anyone else? Go right ahead.
I'll add that you might be done learning, it should be lifelong, so you need to keep learning. Where I would suggest is anyone that wants to finish school, because I know I did it. So when I graduated, I wanted to travel, so I did a lot of backpacking. But now you're traveling with a different mindset. You're traveling with a different lens of actually being more aware of opportunities. So when you are visiting a new country, new culture, new community, and you're seeing certain products or services that are being sold there or being built there that you don't see back home. Now you have that lens now where you're thinking maybe that can be applied somewhere. So when you come with that kind of mentality, I think when you bring back to home base, that's when ideas start to flourish, but you start to want to iterate and start learning. And I think that would be an interesting path to continue to follow.
Yeah, definitely. Isabelle? Yeah.
I think the thing I would say is that you're going from directed learning to self-learning, right? Like by the time you're 20 years into your career, the technologies and things that you're learning today they're gone. Like they're not going to exist, right? Like Windows Server came out the year after I graduated and completely upended the entire business world. So that would be my biggest thing, is that you can never stop learning, and it's constant, but it's got to be something that you can self-direct and do on your own. You will fall behind very quickly in technology if you don't keep up.
I think I will add that when you are transitioning from university life, academia life to the real world, and the one thing that you'll have to be mentally prepared for is that it's gloves off, right? In the environment here, you have educators, faculty, scholars like Faisal and the rest of your faculty hand-holding you, teaching you, guiding you at every step. But the moment you leave university, it's gloves off. Nobody's hand-holding you with white cushion gloves, and nobody is looking at you as a child or as a student anymore. You're in the real world. So I think from my perspective, I mean, Jason, Raza, and Isabelle, I think have already shared from a educational perspective, from a learning perspective. But one of the biggest mind shifts, what I would recommend you to think about is you don't have support. You don't have help in the real world. You have to go find help, look for help if you want to. And if not, at least be prepared that now you don't have tutors, faculty, teachers, teaching assistants, associations supporting you. You are on your own. I think I'm not trying to paint a negative and gloomy picture for you, but I do want you to think about it, at least to prepare your mind that you are on your own now.
Thank you. And stacking onto that same question, once students understand the industry mindset, how should they decide between a traditional tech job or launching their own startup? What factors should influence their decision?
I think the first thing that I always recommend students and at least on their entrepreneurial journey is that the first and foremost thing you have to be mentally prepared for is, are you willing to live without a paycheck? If you are willing to live without a paycheck, only then and only then think about going into entrepreneurship. But if you cannot do that, and there's nothing wrong with it, you have to pay bills, you have to support yourself, you're living by yourself, you have to, get a certain format of monthly income to support yourself, then I would strongly recommend start off in a job, learn what happens in the industry, learn about a job, save some money for yourself, have some sort of a side hustle, and perhaps then think about going full-time into entrepreneurship. So yeah, that would be just my advice, that don't jump into it just because it looks great from a distance. It's not. It's a super hard space to be in.
Yeah, thank you. Anyone else?
Yeah. So first, one thing is, whatever you decide right away, it doesn't have to be permanent. There are multiple entrepreneurs, very successful, who worked at companies, and then at some point when they felt the moment was right in their life, they had the right idea, right people around them, they shifted and they started their own companies. You would find examples of people who are doing the other way around as well, where they started with companies, and then either through mergers or just by connections, they found out that for them the right time was to go back and work in a company. And then even in between, people switch. So whatever you decide is not a permanent thing. You can switch based on your circumstances, but you have to be honest with yourself, right? As Prashant said, it is a challenging life, right? The other thing I would like to add in there is, if you need to be ready and motivated for self-learning, a lot more. At least in the industry, when you're starting, you will have some leverage. You'll have some people, or at least you would find documentation on how to do these things. Like most companies will have that, or they will be assigned you a mentor for at least 6 months, a year, depending on the size of the company, how much resources they were available. So if you're someone who is looking for still a guided path, industry would be a better fit for you. But in the entrepreneurial world, you will be on your own for quite a bit. You get help differently. You build your connections and you go from there, which is but you will have to do that work on your own as well, as opposed to like working at a company.
I think one of the things, a couple of points I would make, just kind of piggybacking a little bit off of it, doesn't have to be permanent. Like, at one time I opened a computer store. I did that for 2 years, and then it wasn't competitive, and then I stopped doing that and went and did something else. I had a blast. It was fun. It was a small business. I was a small business owner. The store didn't fail. I just stopped doing that because I had a better opportunity for a professional career, and I took it. So don't hesitate to try things out and make some money, learn some experience. Closing or moving on doesn't mean you failed at it. I think one of the other things I would say is huge learning experience. Now's the time to do it, honestly. Try things out. If it works out for you, then it works out. But like I said, it's not permanent. Like you said, it's not permanent. And then the other thing I would say is that if you do want to do something, if you've got a great idea that you think is going to turn into a real business, big business, something, don't be working a job in the industry that you've got your idea in, right? If you want to write, an amazing mobile game, don't get hired by a mobile gaming developer, because you're going to have a non-compete, non-disclosure, and all those kinds of things. Go fix computers in a help desk while you build your app or something. Just don't work in the industry that you want to start a business in, because you're going to have non-compete agreements.
2 points I want to make. First, for a lot of people, because in my world, it's entrepreneurship. So I started a couple businesses. The one if you guys know who Robert Herjavec is from Shark Tank, he had a quote where he said, "Don't start a business because you want to be your own boss, because that sounds all great. Start a business because you want to change the world." And so as soon as you kind of tap into that and you kind of find your purpose as to what's kind of, and it doesn't have to be the entire world, it could be just your world, right? Because certainly from my spaces, the workspaces that I run is very hyper local. It's like a 5 kilometer radius is my clientele, right? So I want to change that world around me. So that's just something to keep in mind if you are looking to jump into the world of entrepreneurship. Now, from an anecdotal standpoint, I was actually in corporate for 10 years. I worked for eBay. I found it very difficult to kind of dabble. So to be in the corporate world and then have a side hustle, I think in my experience is a lot easier than if you were to jump in full into entrepreneurship and then try to have like a part-time job doing something else, unless it's maybe a very menial entry-level position where you can have that time. Because most corporate jobs, if you're actually doing it, is going to take up it's going to be a very consuming part, and it'll be a career type thing. So again, there's no rules against this. It's really how how dedicated you are to your craft and to what you want to pursue.
Yeah, it definitely depends on if you are at the right place at the right time. For those interested in entrepreneurship, what's the best way for tech students to turn a side project into a minimum viable product that attracts real users?
So the short answer is there is no straight answer to it, right? That's the shortest answer I can give you. If you have a side hustle, I think I agree with what Jason said, that don't try and build something because you want to be your own boss. If you have a side hustle and you really
just make money.
Or just make money, correct. I think if a side hustle is something which would be of value to solve a problem, which would be of value to the world, which will be of value to people around you, and it is solving a problem in a certain way, continue building it. And the one piece of advice that I did not get in my early days is that how many people you speak with and how you validate that idea, right? So a lot of times you would want to solve a problem, but you wouldn't have validated that problem enough to build it at scale. So to convert your side hustle into a business, a viable business, you have to solve a large enough problem that people will pay money to you to buy a solution to that problem. If you are building a side hustle, like let's say you are developing a video game, for example, because you love playing video games, that's fantastic. But if you want to build a business out of that video game, then you have to have enough people interested in buying that video game from you. There's a difference. So there is a lot of students in early days, you want to pursue creativity, you want to pursue art, you want to pursue science, you want to pursue various projects, and that's fantastic. But the moment you want to build a business out of it, the moment you want to earn money out of it, you have to look at it as a business. You have to look at it as enough people wanting to pay you money for it. And that's where commercialization comes in. And I think that's where you were asking about MVP. Now, MVP for you, if you want to be a great video game player in your own house, is very different than when you want to take that video game out in the market and try and sell it, right? So
I'll add one thing. Even if you're building something that is going to be free, you're still competing with tons of free apps for the user attention span. So on the internet, even the attention span is money. If somebody is giving you attention, they're actually paying you, because then you can collect data, you can sell it, show them ads. That is still money. More from kind of the technical side of things on this, I would say people make mistakes. Again, if you haven't done it, you will sometime go into that perfectionist mindset. You will say, well, I have heard that this is the coolest technology to build these things. Everybody's using that. Don't fall for that. Use the technologies that you know best. If you're building some idea or something, use that to build it. Once you scale, you're getting to the problem, right? The biggest problem is getting from 0 to 1, and then, so don't worry about 1 to 10 at that time. Build, with the tools that you have and the tools you're good at. Secondly, when you're building an MVP, it's a minimum viable product. Don't try to think of like 100 cases and 100 different users you're going to solve the problem for. That may be your vision long term. Write it down, then focus on the most important ones that you can solve at that time, and going to be the biggest differentiator for people to start using your thing. Because for your first goal would be to get those first few users, go to investors, show them, one, you can build something, and number two, there are users that are willing to pay. And then you can, you should have your business deck and everything to show what your roadmap look like, what's your path for getting more users or getting money or clients would look like. All of that is all good. But when you're building it, don't try to build everything or try to pursue things that other people are using to build. You build with your strengths in mind.
Just to piggyback onto Prashant about validation. For me, it's a little bit different from the rest of the panel here because I'm pretty old school. I'm brick and mortar. I have physical spaces that I pay rent. But nonetheless, in terms of validation, there's a lot of tools at your disposal. If there's anyone specifically, into e-commerce or looking to pursue something in e-commerce, from Amazon, if you're looking into FBA program, Helium 10 is a fantastic website to see. So rather than hey, I have an idea, I want to make this sellable. Why don't you look at what the market's actually looking for first and kind of reverse engineer what the demand is for that product, right? Google Trends is a great website as well if you're looking into keywords to see, hey, what's out there? Or is people actually searching for the thing that I want to sell or produce or make, right? So I think, oftentimes it's great when we have our ego in there and to say, yeah, I got this great idea. This is going to be the next unicorn. Is it proven? Is someone else already doing it? And if they are doing it, is successful? Because as many successful businesses that you see out there, there's so many more that has failed because of that mindset as well. So, you can be risk takers and you can go out on a limb and see if that's going to be that big home run, or you can iterate and see what's already existing that people are willing to pay money for.
I would also, you can start with what you do really well right now, and it doesn't have to be what your business stays to do all the time as well. So maybe do consider bread and butter, recurring revenue and things like that right off the hop. The gentleman that started the company that I worked for 15 years ago started as a one-man show fixing computers for local small businesses. And 15 years later, he owns an umbrella company with 3 subdivisions that does software as service applications, enterprise Linux support for governments and multinationals all over the world, and IT support and business coaching for local businesses in the community. He started with just what he could do by himself, and he's grown a multi-million-dollar company that services clients all over the world. Start with what you know, start with what you can do. Just because you start fixing people's computers locally on the weekend doesn't mean that 15 years later you can't have a vastly different and more diverse business. And I think one of the other things I would just completely off topic on that is there's a lot of grants and things like that that are available. The government loves seeing students and young people starting businesses. So there's a lot of information out there, and I would definitely recommend to look at something like that for funding opportunities.
Pitch competitions as well. There's a lot out there.
Yeah, our next question is actually on this topic. Whether choosing employment or entrepreneurship, financial stability is crucial. What financial resources, for example, grants, startup funds, or investments are available for new entrepreneurs? And how can students prepare financially before leaping?
So 2 parts to that question and maybe 5 parts to the answer. I think I'll build on what Isabelle just said, that there are lots of grants out there, and also what Jason said on pitch competition. But let me break that down slightly for you. When you are looking to prepare yourself as students into the entrepreneurship world, there are lots and lots of grants available out there by the government, various programs, which will help you build something as a student. Once you graduate and you are out in the world on your own, when gloves come off, then you do not get student grants. And the difference that I'm trying to point out for you is, and which a lot of people don't talk about enough, is grants in the entrepreneurship world are reimbursements. So please understand that. Student grants, university grants are loans that are given, which in many cases you don't have to pay back. But as an entrepreneur, when you're trying to apply for a government program, they are reimbursements. What does that mean? You build a business, you invest your money in building something, you invest money in hiring somebody, and then various programs, various government grants would help you pay back those salaries. A part of that, not all of it, usually 80% is a typical average. They will help you pay those back. So please understand, when you are trying to do a sort of a financial model or a financial plan for yourself, you want to apply for a grant as a student, there are lots of programs. You want to apply for grants as entrepreneurs on your own, there are lots of programs. But the way you will pay them back and the way you will utilize that fund is vastly different. So that's one part to your question around grants. The second part is for financial stability. I think what Raza said earlier, I would probably ask you to think that again, that go out there, find a job, get yourselves a job, gain experience, gain learning, save some money, and use that to start a business, right? Because if you want to start a business, you have to be mentally prepared that you're not getting paid for at least 2 years, if not more, right? And to sustain yourself, to pay your bills, to keep yourselves healthy and and happy, you have to pay your bills and you have to keep yourself nourished, right? And for that, you have to be able to have some savings, some runway to be able to build a business. You can't do it on an empty stomach. Let's just put it that way, right? So financial stability and financial planning is very important. Depending upon the stage of life you are at and depending upon the stage of your career you are at. And please plan accordingly. Don't try and jump into building a business because it looks glossy and glamorous from a distance. It's not. It's a lot of hard work, comes with sleepless nights. But with those sleepless nights, my sincere advice to you is don't go hungry. Don't build on it on an empty stomach. Make sure you are taken care of, you are well nourished and healthy. Only then you can build a business. If you are not okay, your business is not going to be okay. So the first priority is you have to be okay. Then think about business.
I think one extra thing I'll like to add there would be, again, once you're going through that, there are steps you can take. Try to see, your fixed cost, right? Don't go buy a car. If you want to, leave the company, you're working at a company, and you have saved some money, you're going to go and start your own business. Don't go buy and take a car loan and have a $700 or $800 payment a month. Try to do these things in terms of, okay, in preparation, try to minimize the costs that you'll have to spend for yourself. These are things you can plan for. Give yourself a runway to say, I'm going to try it for 2 years, have enough money that by doing X, Y, Z, have a budget to plan for that and see. In between, obviously, you can do still other things. You can take a consulting gig if something comes up where you can do that to supplement your income that way as well. You don't have to go out and live alone in an apartment. Find a roommate. Find somebody. Or go. It's okay. Go. Ask your parents if you can live at a lower end with them or something. Right. These are all things. Like a lot of these companies, they started from their garage or their parents' garage. That was kind of part of it. You have to be very disciplined about the money that you have, and the longer runway you have, the more attempts you can make at learning, iterating over things, and improving, and finally finding the right market fit.
I would say 2 resources that would be more on the financing side. For the women who are listening as well in the room, the Women's Enterprise Center is a fantastic organization. So webc.com. They do have some loan programs where there's preferred interest rates for women entrepreneurs specifically. And then for futurepreneurs. So if you're under the age of 40, you have access to a program called Futurepreneur that again has direct access to preferred interest rates, where the payback, I believe they give you a year of interest free to pay back the loans up to, I think, $100,000. Don't quote me on that. I think there's a number there, but those would probably be the two organizations I would consider. And then the third one would probably be the next level, where I would hope that you guys are having a business that's already running, is with the Business Development Bank of Canada. So BDC offers loan programs that application processes are not as stringent as most banks are. But at the same time, interest rates are quite a bit higher. So yes, you can get access to the funds quicker, sooner, and more, but you just have to ensure that your business is viable to be able to pay that back.
Okay. Many job and startup opportunities come from the right connections. How important is networking in securing investments, finding customers, or landing high-paying jobs?
It's the most important thing, I would say. I think when we look at networking, one of the things that I advise people is your network is your net worth, and your perception is your reality. As long as you can embed these two concepts in your mind, you'll do well. Who you know, how do you know them, and how do you show up for them and how they show up for you is very, very important. Building your social network also leads into building your social proof when you are building your businesses, because referrals, warm introductions go a huge way, whether it's with investors, whether it is with potential clients, potential partners. Networking is super important. And at the same time, you also have to understand your perceptions. And when I say perception, your perception as a person in real life, and your perception in the social digital world is also very important. So on one side, if you're trying to build a business, don't go on ranting on Facebook or Instagram and do something crazy, because when you are out there trying to find investors, trying to find customers, trying to find clients, everybody is looking you up. Everybody's looking you up on multiple social channels, right? And if you have, let's say, I'm giving an example, if you have a persona or a profile on, let's say, LinkedIn, which says founder, builder, engineer, yada, 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 and then on Instagram, you have this cool dude or a cool person or a cool woman persona, you're swearing and cursing and doing all those things, doesn't help, because your perceptions become your reality if you are presenting yourself and showing up yourself either in real life or on any social media channel. So networking is very important. Nurturing networks are very important. Using your networks for your own benefit and also for their benefit is very, very important.
I would also add, particularly if you're looking at small business and inside of your local organization or local community, hugely important. We saw that really a lot of that during the COVID time and coming out of that. People with large local community professional business networks did really quite well in a lot of areas, particularly people that were branching over into consultations and things like that. Huge. I really wish I had started a lot earlier. I worked in internal IT for a long time. I didn't really think of a professional business network as something I needed to spend very much time on. I didn't attend industry events and things like that. And I really do regret not putting that time in earlier, because my colleagues who I sit now on roundtables with and things like that, who have invested in their professional network, are definitely having a lot easier time through that network than I know that I am. I started late on that. Would really definitely recommend, don't ever stop networking.
Yeah, I'll add to that as well. Don't stop networking. Just because if you got your internship or your first job, and in a year's time you found something better, you build that connection with your colleagues. Stay in touch with them. Whenever you can, because eventually, if you get to a position where you're hiring, you will need those networks to hire people, right? A lot of your hires will come from within those networks. If you're looking for a job and you find somebody already working that, you have a better chance if you ask them for a referral or something. Same thing with businesses, right? So in my personal experience, the current job, I didn't apply for it. It was one of my colleagues who I worked with at Amazon a long time ago. He kind of reached out. I've stayed in touch with him like 10 years. And he said, I'm building my leadership bench. If you're interested, would you like to come? And that's how I said, let's talk, figure it out. I was able to land the job that I'm currently in. Same thing when I'm hiring as well. First and foremost, I'm going to post on my LinkedIn. A lot of time I'll get referrals from people who I worked with in the past. I know this person is looking for a job. And that would be my kind of first group of candidates I'll be interviewing. So building a professional network, super important, and making sure when invest in it, like stay in touch with those people. It shouldn't be just somebody you added 2 years ago and never talk after that. Yeah.
Just a quick question here. Who here has a LinkedIn profile? Who actually uses it on a daily basis? Okay, so here's a little exercise for you guys. This I would consider a networking opportunity. I would hope that at the end of this, that you would be very comfortable approaching us to ask us questions and not just head back. I mean, I don't know if class starts right after this, but if it doesn't, or you guys are on a lunch break or it's a free block or whatever, come see us. Like this is the opportunity to actually not only get more comfortable, because for myself, in life, I'm a very introverted person. It became a necessary evil because of my business that I had to show my face, shake hands, meet politicians and things of that nature. Hated it, couldn't stand it. I don't know why people do it, but with business, I realized that there was such a need to have those connections, not to network to find my next client, but network just to grow your contact base because you just never know who could help you down the road for whatever need it is. So that would be just a little exercise and to take advantage of other events that happen like this because they do exist. Another example is with the Greater Vancouver Board of Trade, they have a program called CYP, Company of Young Professionals. You pay a smaller annual fee to be a part of the Vancouver Board of Trade, but you get access to all of their networking events, right? Some are paid, but a lot of them are free events. At the Burnaby Board of Trade, which is the board that I sit on, they have a program called Access. And again, I think it's $100 a year. They are taking a cohort now, and I think it's at the end of this week. I sent some details on it. But it is, again, a great program. It's a 4-month program for you to take part in. You get invited to a lot of these events. And again, you're rubbing shoulders with people that have been that have worked or in entrepreneur or they're part of corporates. And when you come from a place of curiosity and you have questions and you come from a place of wanting to learn, I can't think of better opportunities than those.
I just want to add to that point. I think that's a great segue from what Jason said. One thing that I have learned over the years is that networking is not about asking. Networking is about listening and giving. You are all students in here in various stages of your university life, I would just call that. And you want to either get a job or you either want to get into something where somebody would hire you in some way or find an opportunity to build a business. If you flip that in your mind a little bit and think about what can I give to a person, and if you start from that place, even as a student, even as somebody who's looking for a job, that is a great place to build relationships. And if you apply that, you will stand out from everybody else who's asking, because 99% of the people who network, they ask. They're either selling a product, asking for a job, asking for a referral, ask. And what Jason said, I until probably 2 years ago, I was an introvert. I had to push myself out of my house to go and meet people and show up for events and connect with people. And now I think I'm doing a decent job. But that has based on the foundation of giving, not asking, and listening, not speaking. So listen to people's stories, where they are coming from, what they're sharing with you, absorb that knowledge. Most of the people in the room raise your hand saying that you have a LinkedIn profile. What do you do on LinkedIn every day? When Jason asked how many of you use it every day, all the hands went down. So think about the careers you want to build. For example, like you are all students of the School of Computing, right? You're learning computing, you're learning computer sciences. You have great ideas in your mind. Does the world really know what's going on in your mind? Yes, you may have TikTok and Instagram. Sorry, apologies. I don't consider that social media as far as professional life is concerned. But on LinkedIn, what do? Do you tell people you're building this cool project? Do you tell people you have this great idea with whatever you're learning in school? Can you showcase to the world that you are different? Not by posing against the CN Tower or going to Granville Street and making a posy picture there and putting it on TikTok. That's not social media for your career specifically. So yeah, sorry, I was just wanting to build on Jason's point, but please think about it. If you want to build a career, think about giving and listening.
I actually use Zoom, LinkedIn quite often for the sake of setting up Zoom calls, Zoom meetings with people that I actually want to connect with. And again, coming from a place of curiosity, like I just got into the food industry 8 years ago, knowing nothing about food except how to eat it. So for me to connect with industry professionals, restaurateurs, franchisees, people who build equipment or have built kitchen equipment, things that I knew nothing about, reaching out through LinkedIn and asking for a Zoom call, it has probably been the easiest thing to do. And it's because I hate cold calling. I hate picking up the phone and talking to people, but at least to send in a DM and just set it and forget it. And if it comes back, great. If it doesn't, all good too.
And sorry, I don't want to bore you on this, but I'll give you an example. The last couple of years, everybody I have hired, they came to me from LinkedIn. I have not posted a single job in my companies. And you'll be surprised, I am not a tech person. I'm actually a banker. So I'm building tech companies. I learned tech, and everybody I've hired in the last few years, they all came through me from LinkedIn because they showed value. I have not posted a single job in any of my companies in the past at least 4 or 5 years. Yeah.
One of the things I think is kind of, you said it, I'll say it too, introverted, absolutely. Building your network requires you putting yourself out there. Absolutely. Everybody talks about using LinkedIn, not on a daily basis. I didn't even have a picture on my LinkedIn until 4 years ago, when I started building the networking, right? It's not uncommon, particularly people in information technology, to be very introverted people. Find ways of getting out there, because once you become the face of a company, once you're in there meeting with clients, like you have to either, I don't just get to sit behind a computer anymore, running servers and things. I'm on client calls 5 to 7 hours a day now. It's all people. And you're going to have to learn how to do that.
I know we've talked a bit about it, but just to elaborate more, what networking platforms, I know we mentioned LinkedIn, but maybe conferences or hackathons have helped you build meaningful industry connections? And what are the best ways students can leverage these programs?
Obviously, the LinkedIn is one of them. Keep an eye for different meetups, events that are happening. There are tons of. I'm going to talk more from the technology side of things. There's a Ruby meetup for Ruby programmers. There's a Node.js meetup. So there are tons of these technology specific ones. Some are more sector specific ones that most of them are free or a very small kind of entry fee. You go in with tons of professionals. You go in, you talk to people. Don't have to talk to everybody. Just have okay, I'm going to talk to 2 people or 3 people in that, and eventually you'll get better at it. So attend as many events. For more, people don't think of it. Stack Overflow, if you're actively participating, reading and coming, that's actually networking. There are tons of Discord channels you can go into, technology specific one that you'll find. Okay, there's a Discord channel where people discuss about these things. I am part of a bunch of there's Slack channel communities, found it through connections, join them, participate in them. So LinkedIn is a good start, but you as soon as you start, right now with ChatGPT and everything, it's not that hard. You say, well, what are the ways I can build my network within this specific field? And you'll get a ton of resources on what websites you can join, what other things you could join, what channels you can join, how you can join them, a lot of these things.
To add to that, there is a Vancouver Tech Week, which is coming up in the next couple of months. There is Vancouver DevOps groups. There is Vancouver Design Community. There is Vancouver, it's called, what's it called? Java something. It's Vancouver Java something. Anyway, there are a bunch of these tech specific groups which are out there in Vancouver. I can give you some details, Faisal, and you can probably connect with them, and I can make some intros for you as well to connect the students. As students, these are great places to, get onto their Slack channel, get onto their Discord channel. They have WhatsApp groups, lots of channels. And I can send you all the information. I have it. These guys are connected with me for years. I can forward them all to Faisal and Alana. You can connect with them and try and build connections with these groups. And they meet regularly. They have quarterly events, monthly events. There is an annual big thing coming up in the next couple of months. So I would sincerely recommend go to these events, show up in person, right? And when you meet people in person, you get more ideas. You listen to their stories. You understand what's going out in, outside of your bubble, just in the university. Go outside of that. Outside of that, there is a whole AI summit that gets planned. There was one last year. There's one coming up again in the next few months. Again, I can send you all those details to Faisal. Connect with those groups. Those are people you would find instant connections with because you are all part of School of Computing, and all these groups are focused on DevOps, development, design, UX, UI, product. So those would be great places for you to make a start.
On LinkedIn, of course, I usually quite often, especially when I'm talking to somebody who's interested in a subject I don't know about, I usually wind up talking about start with the subreddit dedicated to what it is. Find out what those people are talking about. Find out from there where people are meeting. I'm probably a better part of about 25 or 30 Discord groups that are specific channels. You're never going to find an invite out there. You're going to get invited after engaging in a more public space. As far as the local connections and things like that go, look for local community events. I know that there's everything from game jams to startup hackathons. Some of them are done with the university in conjunction with the local business community. I know out in between Chilliwack and Abbotsford, there is at least 4 monthly meetups that I regularly attend. There is everything from people who have launched a business to creative individuals. And these are just local. They're held at different co-work facilities or different schools or community centers. These are your local businesses. Chamber of Commerce is another great one if you're working for somebody and you've got the opportunity to, if they're a chamber member, Chamber Connections and other educational events that are run by chambers are really great for business networking as well. But that would be my recommendations is the online stuff. Find their online community and where they're based, participate in it, and get invited to their space. Locally, just show up.
Shameless plug, I run a meetup group called Burnaby Startups. It's got about 1,600 members. But I host and I cover all kinds of topics, inviting really cool speakers. But just to actually, Raza made a good point too. When you're at these networking events, no matter if it's 100 people, 20 people, 30 people, the goal is not to meet everybody. You want to just meet pick 2 or 3 and make that your victory. And especially if you've never networked before, that can be pretty overwhelming to have to bring out business cards and show your LinkedIn profile and get everyone to scan you. That's a whole thing. So I would say just take baby steps, and that's really the more the type of networking that's more enriching anyways, because otherwise it just becomes speed dating and you just want to collect as many contacts as possible, which you're never going to speak to them again. So the 2 or 3, be intentional with it, have really good conversation in terms of questions, but at least also come prepared too. So if you know what type of forum it's going to be, if it's not industry specific, it's not a Linux user group one, but it's more of a business related one, then you should come a little bit more prepared in terms of things that you want to learn, want to find out. So have some questions in place for that. Because you'd be surprised who you might actually connect with.
Just a quick question. Show of hands. How many of people in the room live close to the campus? Everybody? Okay. So the reason I ask is that you may find it logistically challenging to run into downtown Vancouver all the time. As a group of students, how about you start a group for yourself here, right? Nothing stops you from that. You can start a WhatsApp channel, you can start a Slack group, you can start a Discord channel. You can build yourself a community group right here and do something fantastic with it and basically be an attraction point for people from all the way Vancouver to recognize that, hey, there is this fantastic group of developers, designers, product people, all the way in the University of Fraser Valley, and we should go and check them out, right? Just an idea. So if you all are logistically close by here, think about ways you can build a community right here so that you don't have to necessarily travel all the way.
Yeah, we do have the Computing Students Association, and that's exactly what we're for. Just we have a LinkedIn and we have events, and it's just a group of very talented students just looking to reach out and make new connections. But yeah, it's a CSA. That's what we are.
Perfect. No, I mean, I can definitely recommend you guys to connect with some of the bigger
Yeah,
groups
that'll
that
be
are out there.
amazing.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you. All right, what we're going to do now is move on to the live Q&A session. We do have this Slido, so you can just you can scan the QR code or put in the numbers on your phone. And pretty much you can ask any questions. I do think did we get some questions already? Okay, amazing. Yeah, so you can upload questions that you want. You can ask specific questions to our panelists, just add their name to it, and let me take a look at the questions that I've got already. Okay, yeah.
Okay, I have one question. So specifically from Isabelle as well as Raza. So how important it is to learn AI for these students, the way like the technology is transforming. So what do you think and what your experiences is about AI?
Yeah, I think AI right now is evolving at such a quick pace. We don't even know what can be done, what's possible, and where the future is going to be. What we are seeing right now is it is augmenting kind of work as a tool. So back in the day, you used to have Google. As a developer, you were expected that you will Google and you'll be able to use Google and find the answers or use Stack Overflow. Like those were kind of the tools you were available. You had to go seek information. Now with a lot of AI, that information is there. You just need to know how to ask, right? So at Amazon, we have tools which can write code. We do still check our code before we release it. It's not like we did write and release it. There is still large human involvement in it. But yeah, they can help us write code. They can actually find out your code, and like we have tools that can help us with the documents. Like if I'm writing a document, I don't need to kind of now proofread it. I just hey, here's my document. Can you make sure there's no typos in there? And we'll kind of point them out. Oh, here's you made a mistake here, or here the sentence is too long, or you're using passive voice, replace it with active voice. These kind of things. So the way AI is being used right now to a large degree in industry is as a tool that's helping people do the same amount of work in less time. So to learn to use those. If you're working or if you have an internship or something, one thing I would say is be mindful of what tools you're using, right? If I'm working at a professional company, I'm not going to go and actually start uploading my doc in ChatGPT and ask for these things, or Grammarly or one of these things, right? So be mindful of that. Is understand the limits of what you can use with them, because they may be able to provide you the answer, but then a lot of these they're actually training you, based on your data. Yeah.
I'm going to approach it a little bit differently because I'm not in any kind of like development or anything like that. Strictly from industry and empowering organizations with technology. I would say that probably the most obvious use case that exists right now that's highly viable for AI is the AIs that are built into productivity applications, particularly productivity applications that are an ecosystem for the line of business. So primarily, I'm a Microsoft partner. Microsoft's what I do. So it's going to be Copilot. Speaking to the security side of things, no, you can't upload your proprietary code into GPT and ask it to edit it or something. But if that's sitting on a Git or something that is connected to your business's Copilot, well, that's now your own business's AI that's operating inside of the security context of the user, right? It's not out there in the world. It's not being trained on anything other than corporate data for corporate purposes. It's owned by the corporate. So we're starting to see things like that come in. And it's when we talk about doing what your job is, except faster, we're talking like so fast, right? So an example, right now, it might take somebody, human resources might go to a website, HR downloads or BDC, and download a policy, tweak that policy for their own company use, and then take that and turn it into a PowerPoint, and then go set up a meeting and present that, new policy to the rest of the team. That's now, it's about a 15-minute task with Copilot. You can literally ask Microsoft Word to write you a document. You can then reference that document inside of PowerPoint, and PowerPoint will just simply create your PowerPoint for you. And then you can ask Copilot to schedule a meeting with a particular group of people that are in your Outlook, and it'll do it. Like, that's where it's actually being used inside of business right now to very effectively saving time. I think we're going to see more and more and more of that. If you're into development and things like that in AI, maybe it's going to be as a developer working for an organization that does that, everybody's going to get their AI. Because when the AI is baked in as a productivity tool into the line of business application itself, now it's not out there in the world. Now it's owned by your organization. And that's really where I see it, is it's just going to be more and more augmentation. Ever since we've had spell checkers, we've had AI of some sort, and it's just going to constantly be better and better. I mean, we've had grammar checking inside of Microsoft Word for 15, 20 years, right? That's all AI. We're just getting to the point now where the AI is just going to do more and more and more of that writing. But that's where I see it. It's inside of the line of business applications.
Can I just add to that? I think from a job perspective, from an employment and industry perspective, I would try and simplify it a little bit, and probably oversimplify a little bit, that you can break it down into three parts, right? There are jobs which are involved in coding, right? Where you are learning and learning to code, and you are deploying code in a particular software. So that's one part of it. The second part of it is the actual use cases, which are large language model based agentic AI, agents, bots, working with those bots, like Isabelle said, how to automate certain things. So workflow automation and task automation is the second part of it. And the third is being able to teach people how to automate, right? So learning AI would be probably in broken down into these three parts. Do you want to learn to code? And as part of your education and as part of your learning, do you want to get into jobs where you will create some fantastic code and fantastic products based on that code? The second part would be you're not coding, but you're using various existing low-code, no-code tools to automate tasks. And the third would be you've become so good at using those tools that you can teach people how to use those tools. I didn't know who said this, and I don't remember who was the person credited for this quote, but I think that has been going on in social media for, I think, probably a year now, that AI is not going to take away people's jobs. People who know how to use AI are going to impact those jobs, right? So probably oversimplification to your question, but yeah, think about it from that perspective. Are you going on the coding side and development? Are you going on the learning and usage side, or you're going on educating and teaching side? At least that's what we know as an ongoing fact for our immediate future. We don't know what's going to happen in 2 years. Nobody knows. But today, that's what's happening.
Yeah, I'll kind of from a more practical example. Long time ago, when cartoons were made, they were actually drawn by hand, right? Then came these tools for animators and graphics, right? That was maybe not the same extent of change, but these were tools. So what happened was the tool of that people were using to create the same business or same things, they changed, right? It didn't take the job of an animator, but instead of now them having to learn to draw, they needed to draw on a computer and need to learn how to do this. And the same thing is going to happening with AI as well. It's augmenting, somebody still need to think of an idea that this is the idea that I want to build. Right? This is the value proposition is going to be. yes, you can ask AI to, what does a business plan looks like? But it's going to be your business plan. Or if you're, writing code, you can ask like, okay, here's my code. Again, check for syntax errors. These things existed. It's just at a higher scale, much faster than it used to be. It's, so yeah, it's like Clippy used to exist. I don't know if any of you even know about it. Clippy was, there. It was an assistant. Now it's just better.
Anyone remembers Ask Jeeves?
Yeah.
That was like 20 years ago, maybe? 25?
Yeah. Well,
25, yeah.
This question came straight from our Slido. What's the most important skill for me to have as a new employee right out of school?
I can try to answer that. At least in the corporate world, I think the first thing you need to understand is be honest with yourself of what you know and what you don't. And that's BC.
Yeah, it was an emergency alert.
Hopefully. Let me start again. So here's the thing. The typical process is you will go in, you'll have an interview, hopefully it goes well, you'll land a job, right? There is only so much you can pretend that in there, right? So I always give advice. Amazon has this thing which is called untrust, right? And part of it is I can trust this person to either deliver or ask for help. And the example I always give to newcomers, when I mentor them within the company is, let's take two scenarios. You're working on something, you got stuck, you don't know a way forward, right? Or you found something where you need help. You have two choices. You can try to hide it and not talk about it. Try, not hide it in a bad way. You're still trying to do it on your own because maybe you've been with the company for 5 years or maybe 3 months, right? Whatever the timeline is. Eventually, if you're able to solve it on your own, good. If you're not, then you put yourself in like two situations. One, you still were not able to resolve the problem. You didn't deliver. And the person is now not able to trust you that if he gets stuck or she gets stuck, they will raise it. I'll give you an example. A couple of weeks ago, I've been with the company, I've been in the industry for 15 years, with the company for 3 years at least, worked at Amazon in the past as well. And at one point, so almost the end of the day, I sent a message to my manager saying, I am stuck. I don't know what to do here. I need your help. That was my choice. I went there. She, before she went back, she's like, okay, I'll come online. I'll help you out. We could talk through it. And, I was able to present for whatever I was doing the next day. My other choice would have been just sitting there, trying to go on my own. The next day, I need to present that thing to everybody in the team. I would have not been able to do it, or it would have been very clear I didn't do my research. I didn't know what to do. So I will always take the situation of somebody not knowing or knowing that I don't know or I'm struggling and helping me at least deliver versus not delivering, and they will still find out I didn't know what I was doing. So that would be the best piece of advice I will give to anybody.
Next question. Do we have to do a degree to attain a job in the industry? Some people say there's not as much opportunity for those who only have a diploma.
Somebody who hires lots and lots of people, education is really important. I've never actually asked to see somebody's diploma or degree. Don't discount that. Don't discount your education. Obviously, it's super important. Particularly, okay, that's in private. If you go public, if you want to work publicly, it makes a major difference actually. Particularly if you want to get into IT in government organizations and things like that, is quite often written into union contracts what the minimum education level is for that particular role. So if you only have a diploma, the union contract will say you're only allowed to work up to, this pay scale. You have to have a degree in order to work at this pay scale. If you don't have either a degree or a diploma, you're just self-taught or industry certified, you might not even be able to qualify for getting in your foot in the door. So if you're looking at government and union type organizations, the education matters a lot. Inside of private industry, it matters a lot less. What you're capable of is what's most important there.
Yeah, same thing. From a private industry perspective. Again, I'll give you my own example. Like, so 10 years ago, I was interviewing for a startup in Seattle, and part of that was I will get my own job on job authorization. So I looked up, I did the research, collected all the documents and everything, and I show up at the PSARS border. And as I'm going through, it's like, okay, everything seems in order. I didn't go to school here. I went to school in Pakistan, and it's like, oh, where's your degree? Luckily I had it. And I just, here's the degree. I was like, okay, so because you didn't go to school here, you need to have an equivalent certificate which shows that this degree is equivalent to a Canadian or US degree. I haven't even thought of it because having worked in the industry, nobody's actually asked to see my diploma or my degree or anything. Maybe the first job did when they had to apply for a visa or something, but after that, nobody has asked for it. In the industry, apart from government job and unionized job, your skill matter a lot, right? What diploma, like if you have a university degree and a good grade, as somebody who's reviewing the resume, what it shows is you had the consistency, you show up for 4 years at a class, sit down, work through assignments, and while you're paying fees, you're not getting money back for that. Unlike me doing my job, I get money. You're not getting money. You're paying your own money and fees, but you still have the consistency to do that. That's what it shows. Other than that, it doesn't. What you know and what you do in the interview matters more eventually. But so I'll say the same thing. Your resume and your degree doesn't get you a job. It lands you an interview. You land your job on how you do in that interview or how you perform in the interview.
If I'm going for an interview right after graduating, what are employers most focused on seeing from me? What would be a red flag to an employer?
The obvious ones would be, when you're talking, at least do some research about the company. I unfortunately had instances of like interviewing people where I directly ask questions where a product that my team works on, if they use that, and that was just, it could have been one way of solving the solution or a similar product, and the person didn't even know because they haven't even done that kind of research in terms of what it is. But the big red flag, at least from our side at Amazon, is in your interview, don't do something that will get you flagged for the rest of your career. It's not normally answering something like wrong. We come back, we cycle back a year, 2 years, depending on how well you perform. But don't just sit there and start swearing or something or things like that. Just so that would be the red flag, is your make sure that your behavior is professional. That would be the most important thing. And yeah, the rest of it, prepare as much as you can, and try to do your best in the interview. One other thing I would say is, when answering questions, especially technical questions, don't try to give the best answer. Like generally, as an interviewer, when I'm asking, if there's an optimal answer or a solution in my mind, I would still like you to go through and give me simple solution first. So at least you have provided me something, and then you can say, you know what, I think I can do better. This is the next one. Then you can say, well, I can even do better. That's the next one. At least there, you're not jumping to the first one and say, he wasn't able to do anything or she wasn't able to do anything. It will be, they were able to do something, but not the best. So that would be the other advice I would say when interviews.
I'll just add to that. I had a 20-year corporate career. Probably I don't look like that anymore. And probably I don't talk like that anymore. But before jumping into building companies, I had a 21-year corporate career. And I've hired close to 5,000 people in that career globally. The one thing that I was always looking for, whether I was hiring somebody in tech or projects or product or even branches or back offices or front offices, the one thing that stood out, irrespective of the level you are applying for, irrespective of the department you're applying for, is showing up aware of what you can do rather than asking. So what that means is, like Raza said, research the company, research the role, research what's required, and go in then fully prepared to say, this is what I can do to do it better. The job description is just a very high level requirement as a parameter on which you are interviewing for. But then, so are the other 200 candidates who applied for the same job. For you to stand out, you have to be able to clearly articulate, you know the role already well enough. You can do the job already well enough. Demonstrate that you know about the product or the particular description in that job to demonstrate that you're different from others. What you have to learn and understand at the back of your mind is nobody today is hiring for any job to teach someone anything. So sometimes when we meet candidates, we hear them say, oh, I will learn this. Oh, I can learn this. I'm a great learner. What you are demonstrating is your ability to learn, yes, but what you're not understanding is nobody has the time, patience, money, and capability to teach you and pay you at the same time. That only happens in university. Gone are the days where you will be hired as a trainee and somebody will train you. The speed at which technology is, probably not.
One of the things I would note on that, a little bit of a reverse in that, is we do actually offer paid training to our employees. Every one of our employees does have a 2-hour training block where there's working on industry-specific certifications that we've assigned to them. Now, that is a business benefit. So like I had mentioned earlier, we're a Microsoft partner. In order to be a Microsoft partner and have a designation in a particular area, like the Microsoft Modern Work, you need to employ people who are certified through Microsoft certifications in order to get that designation. Nobody's got those designations right now. I don't think does anybody have a Microsoft certificate? No. A few people? Okay, that's great. Congratulations. So we put people through certifications. We pay for their course exams. They get 2 hours a week to go through it. And every 2 to 4 months, depending on the course, they wind up with a certification that we as their employee apply to our Microsoft partnership. So there is some training that's on the job. But really, when in an interview, you need to come to the table and show me what you've done. If that's got no experience, then it better be a lab. It's better be, studying of the products, right? If I've listed that we're a Hyper-V shop, and I ask you what your experience is with that, and you tell me, well, I've worked on Proxmox a bunch, that doesn't, it's not really very transferable at all. So when you're reading a job description, come prepared to show what you've done in your life that qualifies you for the position that you're in. Huge fan of co-ops because you wind up with a year experience or more by going through a co-op program.
Co-ops, internships. The one other part I would add there would be, which is unique to very, very large companies. They will take some risk, but they will take a risk on your basics. They will say, well, I see this person is a strong programmer. That's why they have these really high, lead code type interviews, because they're in a unique position where the problems that they are solving, they are the only ones solving, or they're a very, very small group of people who are solving that problem. So if I'm hiring somebody, I know that the scale at which I'm going to build the system or the specific tools, because we're a big enough company, we'll have our internal tools and internal ways of doing it. Those are things that somebody coming from industry will not know, or somebody coming from academia will not know. And that's where they will take the risk. But that means the rest of it, you should be able to, they're not going to take a risk on, we'll teach you programming. They may take a risk on, okay, this is our internal tool, which we use to do X, Y, Z. That's where they will take risks. Those are the teaching that is available, but not on the basic things.
If there's anyone in the crowd right now who'd like to ask a question, feel free to raise your hand and we'd love to call on you. But for now, I'll move on to the next question. Are there specific ways to get better at networking if you've never done it or are really bad at it?
Show up.
Yeah,
Yeah.
there is.
And bomb. You can bomb. It's okay.
Yeah.
I've bombed many times.
Yeah. The only way to get better at anything is just by doing it. There was a time where sitting in a place like this, my legs will be trembling, I'll be shivering, but it just over time, keep on doing it and you get better at it.
I think the first thing that I did, and I can share that, is a couple of times when I went into the events with large groups, I just observed. The first thing I did was, like Isabelle said, show up. Of course, you have to consistently show up. And second, when you don't know what to say, how to approach people, what to do, just observe. Like if you are in an event, if you are in a room full of people or in an event space or in a meetup, it's okay to just observe. You don't have to really just start diving into it straight away. Observe, you will see what others are doing. And as human beings, there is, I think there is some story and something about that we are descendants of the great apes. And and we like copying and mimicking. So just see what people are doing around you. Learn by copying, learn by observing, and you will be able to imitate and mimic and copy what others are doing, and you can go from there.
And yeah, as Jason said, it's okay to fail. Sorry, go ahead. Question. Okay. You can fail. The key thing is you learn, and it is not that, right? Even after spending this much time in industry, if I were to go for an interview tomorrow, what I do after every interview, it's not that when the interview is done, I will actually sit down and say, well, these were the questions that were asked. Which one of these I could have answered better on the spot? It's not like every time I'll answer every single question perfectly. There are times where I think of it, I have a bit more time, maybe later, a couple of hours later or the next day, I will say, well, this I could have answered better. And I would write down. I have written down probably interview questions that have been asked for me for like last at least 10 years in somewhere. And before I don't need to touch wood anytime soon. But if I were to start interviewing again, that would be my first material. I'll go through those questions. I'll revise them and say, well, which of these now, based on where currently I am and my current experience, which of these I can do better? The same thing is within networking. Go in there, you didn't do well. Try to see what you could have, how could you approach this interaction better, or how could you have answered these questions better? What kind of people or things people are talking about or questions people are asking?
Speaking of questions, I would say if you approach somebody, maybe today, a couple questions you might want to ask will be along the lines, and the goal is to create conversation, right? Is to see whether or not there's some compatibility or some synergies here. So, one question could just be simply like, what inspired you to do what you're doing now? Another question could be, if you weren't doing what you were doing now, what could you have been doing? And maybe a third one would be, what advice would you give me? And be very specific, right? So if you're actually looking for genuine advice on a specific skill or a tool or a job, that would be a question to ask too. You may not get the exact answer you wanted, but that's the beauty of networking. It's just touching base with who might be able to provide some doors to open for you.
And I'll just add an example to that. A couple of years ago, I was in a networking event, and there was I think a newly graduated person who actually came up to me and said, I have no idea what to say to you, and I am nervous as hell. He actually said this to me, and I hired that person a year later. So just to give you an example, it's absolutely okay to walk up to someone and say, hey, I am nervous. I don't know what I should say or what I can say. It's almost like going to somebody and saying, I'm really thirsty. Can you help me with a glass of water? It's almost that, right? So that person was genuine, came up to me, looked at me and said that, I am a new graduate. I'm looking for a job, but I really don't know what to say. I've never been to a networking event. And basically, he was just a sweet person and genuine person. So I connected with him over a period of a year's time. And a year later, I hired that person. So just to give you an example, just be honest.
Yeah, right there in the back.
So great question. Last year, I had somebody who did do something to stand out for me. I'll give you an example. So what this person did was came up to a networking event. There were a couple of us who were either on panel or who were invited. So this person did a lot of research about the people who are going to attend that networking event. So for example, Eventbrite or Luma or Meetup, whatever channel or tool you use, I don't know if in all, but in most cases, you're able to see the attendees list and their names. find about them, what do they do, where they're coming from, what their backgrounds are, what do they do on LinkedIn, etc. And when you walk up to them in real life and say, hey, I read your LinkedIn profile, this is what you do, this is really cool, can you tell me more? Or another example is, hey, you are running this company, I saw your company's website, I saw this product, this really stood out for me, could you tell me more? I would love to try it out. So basically telling a person that you know about them and you want to know more is a great way to stand out. That's one. The second thing I can give you another example of that is when you're going into an event and you don't know who all is there, right? You go in there and say something unique about yourself, right? And when you say something unique about yourself, it's not your resume. Oh, I am this, this, this. I have studied this, this, this. This is my job. No. Hey, I love to paint when I have free time. I love to go out for a run in the sun when it's a great weather. Something which is not about the job and the industry, something which is personal about you, and you ask that person to tell you something personal about them, that's a great recall value. So that's a great way to stand out. I don't know if anybody else has any.
One thing, like I have a lot of friends who work in tech industry, and unfortunately, our conversations, I'm talking about like friends group, tend to be about tech and all. And that's the last thing we want to, like you're going on a networking event, or your friends and family, just feel like me, you don't want to sometimes talk about work. So that's a good thing, right? As Prashant said, yes, your main kind of goal is to network, maybe talk about technology or whatever. You don't have to. If you have something interesting that you want to, we will find that people are okay with having those conversations, right? As long as it's something interesting that's going on, right?
There are a couple more.
Don't stand out for the wrong reason.
Yeah.
yes, that's a great point.
Yeah, go right ahead.
Hello. My question is, for some of us who aren't lucky enough to get internship positions, in any area, one of the ways you mentioned to build yourself is, with, what do you call it, certifications. And I just wanted to know which certifications are, really interesting to the industry right now, and what's the best way to utilize them?
I will give it like slightly different because there's just so many things, so many certifications that you can get. Like naming a few that if you do this X, Y, Z, you will be able to land. If the primary goal of that is to land a job, is going to be very challenging. I would recommend you instead focus on, let's say you're a computer science student, right? Focus there in terms of, is there an interesting project that I can do? Put it out on GitHub or somewhere public, right? Or that way, show that you can build, because in the end, the way it would go is you're not able to get the internship. The next phase, as I mentioned, is going to land an interview. There, your resume matters, and all of these things build up to your resume. Right, during the interview, you can actually share these things. Hey, I've done this, this is the project I've done. One, you will have your learning by doing that. So I would say one part of it would be, instead of, unless you're going in a very particular industry, just collecting certifications is not going to help. Yes, there are general things like AI is, a big topic right now. If you're interested in that, there are tons of things like Coursera. You can take a course on that, go through a specialization in that. Still, it doesn't show that you're an expert, but it does show that you're interested. And you would probably, if somebody is talking to you about that, you will be able to answer that if you've kind of done it for the right reasons.
I think certifications are a little touchy in the industry because, like, hiring managers, we're very well aware that, like, if you want like an A+ certification in something, you can pay like $100 and take a course on how to pass the A+ exam. You haven't learned anything. You've just simply learned how to pass the exam. So we approach certifications with a lot of skepticism. It doesn't mean you don't know what you're doing, but it doesn't necessarily mean that you do. I would definitely say a certification or two is A+. It's like, or not, I don't mean the A+, but like great. But it's probably not going to be a bonus on an interview or something. Show me what you did. I'm going to ask in an interview, I'm going to ask you about your home lab. If you say I don't have a home lab, then I mean you don't have that. You don't have that experience. If you can be like, oh well, yeah, totally. I got this old computer. I'm running XYZ, so many virtual machines that are doing these roles. Like, show me that you know what you're doing in the job that I'm interviewing you for.
Thank you.
Okay, let's take one more question. Yep.
It's quite long one. So right now, IT market in Canada specifically is oversaturated with a lot of specialists who have big experience, previous experience. Yes, because of the layoffs after COVID and so on and so on. So as a student, most of us don't have experience, and even if we have, a lot of job positions that I've seen right now, specifically for the developer positions, they require like some sort of proof, code examples, like, I don't know, profile on GitHub or whatever. I have experience of 15 years of developing code, but all code I write, I do it commercially. It doesn't belong to me, it belongs to the company, and I sign NDA, right? So I cannot show it specifically. So what, like, as you hired a lot of people during like your during the years, so what alternative may be presented to prove that you really have the experience that you claim in your resume or in like LinkedIn account and so on?
I think two parts to that. So for yourself, you're in somewhat a unique position to have, working 15 years in the industry. So the way you would approach applying for a job will be very different for somebody who's freshly graduated, right? For you, you have to structure your resume in terms of, and I can do kind of a whole session on just how to kind of write a good resume separately. It would be highlight, what's most important, right? I see still resumes from people they try to do it in a chronological order. So if they're doing masters, they will actually have masters on top or their academics on top or skills. Just, you have to approach it in a way that if you're like go at a random job on LinkedIn, you will probably see in this entire time, right, 300, 400 applicants, for depending on the role. Anybody who's reviewing that, if they take, let's say, 10 minutes to review each of these, right, that's 4,000 minutes. That's and then most likely the first person who's looking at it, with a small or a medium-sized company is a recruiter. They have other things to do. They have to schedule interviews. They have to chase down interviewers to schedule times, bunch of things, to chase them down for feedback. So you need to really stand out in terms of when you're writing resume, what is the most important thing that they can scan within maybe 2 minutes, 1 minute, and you stand out. So one of the first thing I told is, well, if I'm in industry, I've been in the industry for 15 years. Sometimes if I don't have space, I wouldn't even put I have a degree in computer science. It's okay. If I look at my jobs from 10, 15 years ago, it's just the title, no description what I did, right? It's just my last 2 jobs will have, or 3 jobs, depending on how much space, what I did or what I'm doing. 15 years ago, I was a developer. I'm applying for a role of a engineering manager, director, whatever. It's there. If they want to talk about it, I can explain. So that's one part of it, is like how you approach your resume. You have to be, the person who's going to review is likely going to have 1 to 2 minutes to make a decision. For those who are new, don't have experience, that's where some side projects come in. If you're not working full time, right? You find some time, be disciplined about it. Okay, I'm going to pick an idea and I'm going to start building towards it. Build it in public, post about it on LinkedIn, have it on GitHub. If you're able to join Slack groups or developers and these, talk about it. if you learn something, there are opportunities to go and share that, right? You like example, a long time ago, the Ruby meetup. Anybody can sign up to come and talk about anything they learned. These kind of things. So there are ways you can still show that you know your stuff, but eventually, all of that comes down to they will land you an interview. How you do in the interview will land you a job.
Can I give you slightly different and unconventional advice? Don't apply for jobs.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you why. I'll qualify that. Talk to recruiters. Instead of directly applying for jobs and spraying and praying that somebody will call you, find out who the right recruiting groups are and staffing agencies are who are hiring for roles which match your skill set. Reach out to recruiters, explain to them your experience, your skill set, the different type of work you have done, and then have those recruiters find you placements. I have seen that work a lot better for people with experience, because then the recruiter is able to present your profile to relevant companies with relevant job sets and get you better success. And that's why I'm saying don't go out applying for 20 jobs yourself. If you are able to find at least 2 or 3 good recruiters who are on your side, you will find success in finding the right role and the right placement fairly quickly.
Yeah.
And they don't cost you anything.
Yeah.
And
It's illegal for them to charge you any
The
money.
employers pay them. The employers pay the headhunters.
yeah, just to add to that, even if you are applying for a company's job, like don't just directly apply there. Go on LinkedIn, see if you know anybody at the company, see who the recruiter is, send them a message. I don't remember the last time I actually directly applied to a company. Even if I was going to apply, I will first look up who do I know at that company? Is there a recruiter? I would send a message to the recruiter first and say, hey, or if on LinkedIn, sometimes they will say who the hiring manager is. I'll send them a message first, say, hey, I looked at this. Obviously, it would be professional, not say, hey, but I'll explain my situation. This is what I'm interested in this. I would like your 15 minutes of your time. And then, most likely in a lot of cases, they will come back like asking for 5 minutes, or, most people will say yes, especially if you have a bit of experience. And then you say, you come prepared, ask your questions, and then say, I'm interested, can I apply, or how can I apply? Is there a recruiter you can get me in touch, or a hiring manager? That's always another way of doing it as well.
All right, we had one last question from the crowd.
We have talked a lot about networking is really important for career growth, right? And a lot of you mentioned that it's really important to be in in-person events. But how you, Raza somewhat answered my question as well. But how do you approach someone on LinkedIn or platforms like LinkedIn? What are some do's and don'ts when you approach a professional on LinkedIn?
So that's a great question. I think on LinkedIn, research and finding out who you're approaching is very important. Just by sending random connection requests, 80% chance nobody's going to accept it. It's getting ignored. So if you research specific people you want to connect with on LinkedIn, find out you can apply multiple filters on LinkedIn by the industry, domain, job titles, city, location, company. You can choose and decide who are the groups of people or individuals you want to approach. Learn about them, see what they do on LinkedIn, see what their jobs are, and then approach them with thoughtful, value-added messages and say, hey, my name is so-and-so, I'm a student here and here, I am looking to progress in my career, I'm trying to build my network, I would love to connect with you, would you have 5 minutes spare to give me some valuable advice for my career? Something which resonates with a person, adds value from your point, and also demonstrates that you are coming from a genuine place to learn, that improves your chance of that person listening to you, acknowledging you, connecting with you, and giving you some spare time and some word of advice. That's typically I would advise anybody in the room to do it.
So let me kind of give you an example. Like most of us, and people who are working in industry, they're busy, right? If you're just sending a generic, request, what you're doing is then putting the onus on me to go click on your profile, check, where could I met this person, why this person wants to connect to me, and you're putting that load on me. That's already a negative experience for me, right? that you want to avoid that. You want to be more thoughtful instead of having a generic message. You can have like a template of generic messages, then you can just tailor to actually send it, but try to send a more personalized message when you want to connect with somebody. And yeah, have a particular ask why you want to connect, right? And sometimes it just be as simple as I need 5 minutes of your time, for advice because I'm a fresh grad, looking for a role. I want to learn. You have a wonderful. Everybody wants to, love to hear about how wonderful they've done in their career. Just I've seen your career, very wonderful career. I would love to benefit, from your experience. Can I have 5 minutes of your time? Make them feel valuable when you're asking their time, and most people will say yes. Then yeah, that would be a good, starting point. And yeah, if they do accept that, follow up. Do actually ask for their 5 minutes that they committed to. And be prepared to, maybe 1 or 2 questions. And the last part would be mindful. If you ask for 5 to 10 minutes, try to make sure that your conversation kind of ends within that timeline as well.
One of the things I'd really point out is don't be a bot. Particularly people with executive titles and roles on LinkedIn. It's like 75-80% of LinkedIn conversations are just bots talking to each other right now. There's a lot of connection requests that fly around, but make it real, right? Have a reason to want to connect with that person, but also consider lower level staff that are more probably first line workers that are actually doing the jobs that you would hope to get to. Maybe instead of reaching out to me on LinkedIn, maybe reach out to one of my engineers or techs, because they don't get 100 requests a month, a week, a day. They're not being hounded by bots, and they've got experience and probably more appropriate insight necessarily than I would right away. It doesn't mean you don't follow me or send me a LinkedIn request after you've talked to my colleague for a week, but don't necessarily be looking at executives. There is a lot of fatigue on LinkedIn. Yeah.
And can I add to that? I think what you can also do outside of just looking for network connections just to get their 5 minutes of feedback is, if you are working on some really cool projects and portfolio, attach that link and say, hey, I'm working on this. Can you give me feedback on my portfolio? Can you give me a feedback on my profile? Can you give me a feedback on this project I'm working on? That's a great way if you're looking at mid-career level executives or even, early senior executives, reaching out to them with your project gets you attention because they would love to review what you have. Not all, but in most cases, you would be able to get attention.
In fact, I will give everybody an exercise. Maybe, you have our names, find us on LinkedIn, look up what we do and send us a request, a personalized request. I'll accept anybody who send that personalized request. So yeah, that's a homework for you guys.
That was on my to-dos today.
Thank you, everyone. And that concludes our live Q&A session. Thank you, everyone, for these very insightful questions. And now I'm going to give it back to Professor.
Thank you for sharing your amazing journey as well as experiences. So we would like to conclude this session. So I would like to thank Sabrine for moderating this session. Alana, she is there. She was always coordinating with me as well as with you guys. Rachel, she is behind the stage. OPME director for always supporting and guiding us, as well as Kayla Webster. They are from CEC. Rashmin Kashwani, Jason Lee, CSA student volunteers, John Thomas, and Anshu, and as well as you. So thank you. So now we have a 10 to 15 minutes kind of a networking session. You can grab snacks, and if anyone wants, they can you can network with them. Thank you.